Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Our guest for this evening is fucking awesome. As you said before, is Barry Dougherty. He's an author. This dude knows fucking everyone in comedy. It's insane. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about two of his books that I happen to actually own. And I believe I met him. I don't believe it. I know I met him once before because I have his signature in this book. But I don't think he remembers. So we're going to talk about that. So why don't we bring Barry out?
Oh,
hey, there he is.
Hey, John.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. Now that I can see you, no, I don't remember you.
No, I didn't have, okay, I'll tell you right now. I didn't have as much hair, and I didn't have a beard, and I didn't have dark rimmed glass. I was a completely different person. Everything you see me in as now did not exist.
He was an elderly black woman at the time.
Oh, whoopee.
Yes.
Now I
was
yes,
just coming off the color purple.
Miss Jane Pittman.
I hadn't yet gotten The View. It was a tough time.
I just want to, you look like I just got to call you dude. And I don't talk that way, but you look like your grandmother called you dude. Have that look.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I like that you're using a different vernacular around me. It makes me feel like we're just breaking ground.
Oh, yeah. I'll move up to bro real soon.
That's Richie Burns' word. So I don't know. I think he actually licensed it. Yeah. Gunjil does a great impression of Richie Burns.
Yeah. Hey, bro.
Yeah, see?
Have you ever had that where like there's a phrase that you like using? Like you said, like dude, but you're not a dude guy. For years, I've wanted to be a guy that refers to people as cats. Like, oh, this cat over here.
Oh.
But I can't do it. It just doesn't work for a Cthulhu.
Well, you also this isn't 1960.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's still some guys who could pull it off. I'm just not one of them.
But yeah, you're not.
Yeah. He's like, but not you. Not at all. No.
Most are long dead.
Yeah. There's words I definitely overuse that I wish I didn't say, like expressions. I say that's awesome a lot, and I very rarely mean it. But like I don't know what to say. So I'm like, that's awesome.
I'm not that cool. I think I tend to say sometimes correct. Like I'm this professor. Oh, correct. Yeah.
Oh, correct. Yes, very nice.
Yeah, it's this too. It's not. Yeah, it's not dude, bro, cats talk.
It's just correct.
I think people would like when people hear "oh, correct." I think it makes them feel good because it's like, oh, a smart person told me I'm right.
So
you feel like extra.
So I'm pretending to be a smart person.
Yeah, like oh, this guy knows. I'm not just right. I'm correct.
Yeah, you do have a very like a good look with the glasses and everything. Like you look like you know shit. I know you do, but you also look it too. So an air of erudition about you.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Wait, isn't it? No, don't get.
I think that was right. I think you were right there.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's like I'll take the compliment.
Correct.
So wait, I think it was when you wrote this book is when we met. You wrote this in what, 2000? So Barry's the author of 100 Years, A Million Laughs, a centennial celebration of the Friars Club, which is an amazing book.
So their centennial was in 2004. Right.
2004. Okay. See, I started. Yeah. So I met you, I think 7 months into me doing stand-up, which was 2005, because you did a book signing in New Jersey at one of the libraries. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, Brick Library. Yeah.
Yes, Brick Library.
Yeah.
And I was working at I was like a floater at the time. I didn't have a permanent job there yet, but I had just started doing stand-up, and the guy who booked you, Scott Rodas, was a close friend of mine. And he was like, you got to meet this guy. He's like a comedy historian. He's written for Friars Club's roasts. He's written about the roast, about comedy history. And he's like, if you're going to be doing comedy, you need to meet Barry. So I snagged your book and talked to you for a little bit. And then, you asked me who were my favorite comics at the time. We talked about a lot of comedy stuff, and you were kind of surprised that I knew some of the old ones. because there's no, like, you know what I mean? Like, at that point, you thought I would have probably been like, I love Dane Cook, but
right.
who I have no problem with. But I was like, oh man, I was like Alan King, and you were like, I'm sorry, how old are you?
Exactly. Well, that's a story of my life. I talk about all these guys, and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm not on this in this hemisphere anymore. I can't help you. So yeah. That was refreshing. But we probably talked a lot because I didn't have anyone else on the line, and I was bored.
You know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if you did or not. I think I may have waited to the end because I was trying to be polite and not
you're
bother
supposed
you.
to say your line was so long.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I was getting at. I was like, I think I waited till the end. The line was long. Like, you had people there. It was wrapped around the whole fucking thing.
I say, considering he doesn't remember you could have lied about the whole thing. Like,
I could have lied about the whole thing.
Getting mobbed and people grabbing lots of hair.
Well, I'm glad it was just on in that situation. I was thinking, did we, I don't know, have dinner? Were we drinks? Were there a million people? So it was just a random.
No, you were outside. It was you were, it was an outdoor event. So you had like your own table set up. And also I was pretty sure Scott was like, don't bother him though. So I was like, oh, all right. I don't know. But yeah, you were really great, man. You wrote, John, there's a few stand-ups to learn from. Enjoy. Hope to see you in one of these in the future. And I thought, well, you write them. So
yeah.
I was like, I hope I am too. But
guess that didn't happen.
No, it didn't. It did not happen. But you're going to write a new one. This is all about you writing a new one. I'm trying to get you to put one in there and then have me in. That's all I want.
No problem.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, this is a fantastic book. And I also, believe it or not, had this one when I was in high school. I had to do it standing up because I've been a fan of stand-up for years. And that was before I got to meet you. And I loved this book just because I liked the interviews with the comics that you got, like the ones that you kind of outlined. I'd never seen in a book before, like Lily Tomlin. This is the first time I'd read anything about Kevin Meaney and his, because he, like, a lot of the stand-up books I had didn't have those guys in it. So you had a lot of unique people. Did you know them before this, or did you do this?
I did. Kevin was amazing.
Kevin's amazing. Kevin was amazing. Yeah.
He was incredible. Such a cool guy. The cool thing about the book, I went out to LA to interview a lot of the ones that are out there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to actually do a whole piece on where I was when I interviewed them, because depending upon who they were, like Jim Gaffigan, we went to a Mexican restaurant.
Wow.
And, Carol Leifer was Starbucks. And there was Sam Levine. I don't know if you know him. He's he was on Freaks and Geeks, and he's like started stand up when he was like 13.
Right.
Really funny, nice guy. But he was young at the when I did that, so that was a pizza place. So
okay,
it was just kind of George Wallace was in a steakhouse. So.
Oh, nice. See, that's classy though. That's George. That I can believe.
So it was just kind of cool to sort of hang with them. But I didn't know them all personally before that. But Kevin, I did know. He was great.
So how did you? So if you didn't know them, like, did you have particular people in mind specifically for this book though, or did you just kind of? Okay.
No. There were people that I wanted to talk with, and I just contacted them, and they were either for it or against it. So most of them were on board. It was fun.
That's cool. Yeah, no, because like even like Jerry Stiller at the time too. I remember reading about him in the interview you had with him and stuff in here. Was something I didn't know. Like I didn't really know. He had started out as a comedy team. I knew him from Seinfeld at that point,
right?
But none of the history behind it and stuff. So that was always
Stiller and cool. They were great.
Yeah, they were. It was nice. It was a nice little gateway drug, I think, into comedy and stand up.
Yeah, and Jerry. So I interviewed him, and I had known him for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And there was a local restaurant in our neighborhood because we lived in the same area, and so we had lunch there. But we started out at a table, and he was one of those guys. So it's like, maybe we could. Do you want to move to that table? So now we have to get up and move to that table, and
right.
It was a little too cold over there. Can we go to that? That's near a fireplace. So then we, and the waitress is like, yeah. anything you want to do. But of course, we tramped through the entire. We basically ended up back at the same table. He was perfectly content.
Do you think that was a bit he was doing, or do you think he was just literally that finicky about?
I just think that's how he rolled. He's just fun and wacky and so cool. And
somebody just asked you, what is we're going to get random questions that pop up. I don't know if you know how Twitch works, but like there's people watching. So somebody had asked, what is the best joke you've ever heard?
All right. I'm not saying I'm going to tell it good. So, all right. So this came fast, but I'm ready.
Okay, great.
So this guy is sitting on a plane. He's in first class.
Mm-hmm.
And he's thinking, I'm in first class. Clearly, he's new to first class. He's like, I wonder who's going to sit next to me, VIP or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, the Pope gets on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, my God, it's the Pope. I hope he sits next to me. And he does. So the Pope sits down. He's like, oh, God, the Pope is sitting next to me. Hope he talks to me. And then the Pope is doing a crossword puzzle. He's like, oh, I'm really good at crossword puzzles. I hope he asks me a question. So finally, the Pope's like, excuse me, do you know a 4-letter word referring to a woman, and the last 3 letters are U-N-T? And he's thinking, I can't tell that to the Pope. So finally, he's like, oh, so he taps, Mr. Pope, I believe the word you're looking for is ant. And the Pope's like, oh, do you have an eraser? I like it.
That's fantastic. That's a great joke. Who'd you hear it from? Do you remember, or was it?
No idea.
No idea? Okay, that's great. I like that you have a favorite joke ready to go, though. I was going to give you some time.
Yeah, no. Well, we'll use that time for something else that I'm not ready for.
No. So wait, can I tell you what one of my favorite jokes is? And not everybody likes it.
I'd rather not.
You'd rather not? That's fine. Fair enough.
No, I want to hear.
Scoongeal would like. No. This is one of my favorite jokes, and it's not for everybody, but I understand. So this guy, he's had a long day. He's exhausted. He gets home from work. He lights a fire. He pours himself a glass of wine, dims the lights, and he gets a book out, and he just sits by the fireplace to read. And he hears a knock at the door. He gets up, puts his book down, walks over to the door and opens the door, and he looks around. He doesn't see anybody. And then he hears psst, and he looks down, and it's a snail. And he goes, can I interest you in some magazine subscriptions? And the guy's like, picks the snail up and just throws him into the woods as hard as he can, goes back inside, continues to read. 5 years later, guy gets home, lights a fire, pours a glass of wine, sits down to read. Here's another knock at the door. He goes to the door and he opens it and he looks down and it's the snail and he goes, the fuck was that about? I don't know why. I love the idea of a snail taking 5 years to get back to a dude.
It's funny. I've heard that joke. It's good.
Oh, have you? Oh, good.
Yeah.
I have a favorite Kevin Meaney joke, actually. And I thought of this because I met Kevin Meaney and I heard this joke at a Friars Club golf outing that he was performing at.
Oh, wait. I was probably there. I went to all those outings with him.
Yeah. There's at the outing, probably right around 2007, somewhere around there.
Fun.
And so he gets up and he says, my wife and I, we have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a round of applause. And he says, we've named her John Bonet.
That's hilarious. That's really fucking good.
Kevin came out at one of the golf outings.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And
this one he had a wife. So.
Well, I think he still had a wife when he came out, but he came
okay.
out. No, but that was one of his jokes was, how do you tell your wife that you're gay? And he's like, what do I do? I go home, honey, I'm homo.
I just hear him saying it too. That's fantastic. So did you have how did you wind up getting involved with the Friars? Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I got to work on that story. I wish it was more exciting. Yeah, I wish somebody famous said, "Oh, you need to work over at the Friars Club."
Right.
But no, I just sort of happened into it. I knew someone was working there. I had been at it was the Museum of Broadcasting. It's the Paley Center for Media.
Yeah.
And so they did away with my position there, but somebody knew someone at the Friars Club, and I thought, all right, I guess I need a job. I don't know what it is. And I basically started there as a temp, but they had a magazine. It's called The Epistle, and I had an article came out in the Times, and the executive director was like, "Oh, you're a writer. The guy who publishes this, he just died. He was old. Don't worry. Don't be upset."
I was like, this is getting suspicious.
That's what happens over there. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
How convenient.
And I was like, well, I'm a writer, but I don't know about publishing a magazine. So that's how I started. I segued and got myself in there. I mean, I was in there, and then it got to,
and then
it just took off, and then I ended up what?
So you ended up just doing it from that too, and that's how you wound up writing.
I started that, and then I moved into there. I became their communications director, doing PR. Wow. And then writing for the roast. I was head writer for some of the roasts. So it just it ended up being really wacky fun. Oh, there
you go. Yeah. You wrote for the Billy Crystal roast, right?
Yes. Now that picture, actually, though, they named that bar the Billy Crystal Bar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, let me bring that back up.
So that was sort of at the event where we had this party for him.
That's awesome. Now, are you actually pointing to anything, or are you just doing the dramatic pose picture?
I think I was pointing. I didn't expect to be in the picture.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I think that was just a random shot that wasn't posed.
What if somebody said, what is something nice and really bad at the same time your wife could tell you in one sentence? That's a weird. Nobody's going to answer that one.
I think it's a joke setup there.
I think it's a joke setup too, and I wonder if I think he's waiting to give us a joke, so we'll wait for the a response to that. Somebody. So when you were doing those things, kind of too, like too, were you ever starstruck by anybody? Somebody had asked that too.
Yeah, yes and no. It's funny because I worked with so many people, but and this sort of harkens back to just me, but I was a huge fan of Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of people are probably saying this is another thing in my world, but so our paths had crossed for years. I was a reporter years before that for Cablevision on Long Island, and we met there, and then we met again at the Museum of Broadcasting. So we, when they roasted Bob Newhart, she came to that roast, and so we sort of had more time to sort of chat and whatnot. But at some point I had said to her, when we had brunch, and this was like, years and years before, I said, there was a group of reporters because I was covering her. She was on Broadway. And I said, you kicked me because she was uncrossing her legs and she clocked me. And so I'm explaining this, and I'm like, as I'm saying it, and I think we all do this with celebrities, why am I saying this?
Yeah.
Why am I rambling?
Yeah.
But all she said was, and you want me to apologize now? I was like, no, I was just sharing a funny little. Oh, look, there's Mr. Newhart. Let's go over there.
And you're like, and we're done. You want it to be like that great moment that you have with somebody where they're like, oh my God, really? And they engage, and then suddenly they just cut it off short. Yeah.
It's over. But no, but it was fun. And Quentin Tarantino was really cool.
Oh, wow.
So I was working with him on his roast, and it happened to be my birthday that day. And so we all had to go down to dinner, and he sang happy birthday.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's incredible. That's cool. Those are good people to be starstruck by, though.
Yeah, right.
I had I wasn't starstruck, but like when I was younger, starting out in comedy, I was at the comic strip waiting to go on, and Gary Gulman had been hanging around. So I go on, sees me do my set, and then we start talking or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And there's a bunch of people at the bar, so it's really distracting. We've got audience members coming up talking, and then whatever. And he's kind of, chewing my ear off. And I think it's awesome because when I was, younger, I was like, oh my God, Gary Goldman, he was on Tourgasm. He's a really funny guy, been on all this stuff. And it was nice he was taking the time to talk. So he's asking me all these questions, how long I've been doing comedy, great set, yada, yada. And then he goes, this woman comes up to me at the same time. And she's like, hey, that's really funny. And in my head, I'm like, that's nice, but, fuck off. I'm talking to Gary. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't care. But I was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like half listening to him, who he's still talking. And he goes, so you're a yid, huh? And I didn't hear him say yid. I thought he said kid, anything else. I just wasn't half paying attention. And I'm still talking to this woman. So I went to him. I go, yeah. And then I like trying to brush her off. So I do. And I turn back and he goes, so what did your parents think about you doing stand-up? And I was just like, oh, I'm Italian. So I was like, oh, they didn't really care. They didn't, as long as I wasn't like robbing people, you know what I mean? Like it didn't, it was not going to go to the family business. So I was like, oh yeah, they were fine with it. And he goes, oh, that's interesting. And he goes, with Jewish parents, a lot of the time they feel like, and in my head, I'm like, Jewish parents. And then I all of a sudden like rewind and play back the whole thing. I realize he says yid. And in my head, I'm like, fuck, I got to tell him like the truth. Like, I'm like, you got to tell him the truth. And instead I'm just verbally speaking and lying more. I'm like, just like, yeah, no, they were surprisingly fine with it, I mean, for really. And he's like, oh, because my parents, and the lot now it's just building and compounding. And then I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. When am I going to see him again? He's not going to give a shit about me. He doesn't know who I am. And I'm like, whatever. And then I realize I'm going on again later and he's on the same show and he's going to hear my last name and it's Poveromo. So I'm like, so like an asshole, I'm like, jig is up. But instead I go, yeah, by the way, I'm only Jewish on my mom's side, which is Jewish anyway. So I'm just, so then I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot. And he's like, yeah, no, whatever. And I was like, oh, that's so dumb. And then, so now I'm like, so anyway, he's like, yeah, we got to work together sometime, yada, yada. And I'm like, how long am I going to have to continue this lie? Where like, he's inviting me to do, bat mitzvahs and a fuck, you know what I mean? like how long am I going to have to pretend? And then, I was talking to John Fish, who I was friends with, still friends with, but I was talking to him and I tell him, cause he's close with Gary Goldman. He thinks this is the funniest goddamn fucking thing he's ever heard. He's like, you do realize I'm fucking telling him. And I'm like, don't. And he's like, no, it's absolutely happening. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, I would have done anything. Like, if he was like, if he mistook me for gay, I still would have been like, yeah, no, but I only suck dick on my mom's side. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like, I would have just said whatever it was to make, because it would have derailed the conversation. So anyway, he texts me a photo of him sitting across from Gary at whatever, at a diner somewhere. And he just sends me a message that says, you're out of the club. I was just like, what club? like what? And then, yeah, that's all he fucking said to me. And I was like, no. And then he's like, oh, he thinks it's hilarious. But
wait, I love though that you were so quick to go with on my mom's side even. I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah. I just didn't want to disappoint him. I felt like he was really invested in this conversation and
well, clearly you were too, so
yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, oh, he's hanging around. That's pretty sweet. I don't get to hang out at the comic strip bar talking to a, huge comedian at the time. So yeah. So that was like, I don't think I've ever been like wildly. I saw Jane Fonda in the Sirius. I was doing Sirius radio, not to brag. And it's not a brag. Literally everybody does it. But like she walked by and I literally went to go like kind of like that for like half a second and mobbed with people. And I immediately felt like I was almost one of those assholes. You know what I mean? Like I almost got up to be like, oh, she was on Newsroom at the time. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's a phenomenal show, yada, yada. And she was great with in Barefoot in the Park. Those are my only two references, by the way.
Is that really so wrong to see somebody that, I mean, let's face it. I think even stars get starstruck. So, they can go about it differently, but I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody going up to somebody. I mean, it depends where you are. I think it was Paul Newman was asked, why did you stop signing autographs? And I think his answer was something like, when I was standing at a urinal. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know it's weird. I think like, and Skunjeel can probably back us up too on this, but like, I don't do it now so much. Like now I take every opportunity to just at least tell somebody I appreciate them or I'm a fan. But when
Right.
you're, for some reason, when you're starting out in comedy, when I first started out, it was like every club owner, every other comedian was like, you don't approach bigger comics.
Oh yeah.
Don't ask for photos. And there was a lot of missed opportunity there, which is hilarious because it's like, I remember, I've talked to him since, but like at this point, but like when I was starting out, Dave Attell, I worked on a show with him, never asked for a photo, like barely spoke at the time. And then Louis C.K. and Todd Barry were hanging out and walking in too. And again, I never got to just be like, hey, big fan or whatever, because I thought I'd be out of the business that I was barely even in.
Well,
like no one knew who the fuck I was.
Don't bother them, but you're also kind of
does
told
depend
like,
who you.
yeah. Go on. I'm sorry.
Well, who you end. Well, some of them are kind of touchy. I mean, that's a given.
Sure.
And the picture thing, I agree. I mean, working at the Friars, it's not like I ended up with a lot of pictures for things like, standing next to Billy there and, the photographer, whatever. But it was the people that would come up to them and would just go on. Oh, my Aunt Zelda, we saw you. Do you remember us sitting in the fifth row up in the balcony? That's when they're done.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fucking obnoxious.
Yeah.
There's only been like a few times where like I thought, somebody said, do you think there's pressure on comedy with the woke cult around? Do you feel any have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I think that there's just tons of pressure on comedy for every reason at this point. Where to begin? I mean, you've got, you can't say anything without, it's the cancel culture thing coming.
It's a cancer. That's for sure.
It is a cancer. Yes.
Yeah.
It's tough. And they're fighting it. There's a lot of comedians who are just trying to say, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm in the business to make people laugh.
Right.
And, that's what they're up there for. And it's the old thing, you don't like their comedy, then don't go to the show.
Yeah. Then they get the fuck out of the room.
Exactly. But there's a lot of people who are enjoying what they're saying. And there are comedians who are, towing the straight and narrow then, if that's how it has to be. And
right.
I can't fault them either because, they're just doing what they want to do as long as they're plying their craft.
Yeah.
And how they ply it, it's up to them.
And there seems to be room for all of it regardless. Like there's only like, even going out on the road, I mean, if you just stay on Twitter, if you just stay on, any of the social media apps, you would assume everybody is rigid, miserable, unforgiving. But like, if you're touring the country, it's not like that at all. Like 9 times out of 10, the people that are coming out, to see comedy want to enjoy the show. The only people I ever had trouble with when I was on the road out of all, the entire time was in the last 4 years with the Trump crowd. And the closer it got to that end of his reign, it was like they were bloodied in the water. You know what I mean? Like they were feeling like, backed into a corner. And that the only time it ever got weird. Other than that, there's no real complaints. Everybody understands it's, a joke or whatever. But the media kind of feeds on it now.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely do.
Yeah.
Because
somebody said, but if they self-censor to conform, surely that is a bad thing for comedy itself. I mean, if they self-censor, that's survival anyway. Like if you've got comics that are going to, in my opinion anyway, and you can, tell me if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like you're going to have comedians that are going to want to, conform, so to speak, or whatever, just because they want to make money. If they've got a college scene, they're not gonna fuck
everybody self-censors as soon as they get on stage somewhat, we all tell jokes that we wish we could tell and don't tell in certain environments. That's a normal thing.
Yeah.
Have you
we all have our own
Gilbert
barometer.
Gottfried?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Gilbert Gottfried's.
Yeah, but think about the stuff he doesn't say. That's probably.
No, but I do agree with you. I know what you're saying, and it's true. But
here's you and Gilbert now, by the way.
There you are.
That was fantastic. And obviously you're saying something hilarious to him. I love that these pictures aren't, you're right. When there's a photographer in the room, it's just 10 times better to see this stuff. Cause I hate staged photos for the most part.
Right. And I'm not saying I don't have my fair share of those, but these are more fun and it's.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, but it is a weird time. Like people don't understand it. And even I've got friends who like don't quite grasp like because everybody's afraid and they kind of want to be on the right side. So the minute somebody starts talking about cancel culture, they think like they get like their spine up about it or whatever. But in my opinion, there's always this middle ground where because they'll be like, oh, so and so came back and so and so came back, and I'm like, yeah, after they were raked through the fucking coals before anybody decided to comb through what was actually happening. To me, cancel culture isn't this guy got caught and then he goes away. That's usually justifiable most of the time. But it's the middle point where they lose everything first immediately because it's a very like now responsive culture. And then, and then afterward, they're like, oh, you know what? After further review, so-and-so. So there's like mental abuse there. There's like fucking financial stakes. There's their family. It's crazy. It hits on multiple levels. People don't understand it.
Yeah, well, it's very knee jerk. It's like let's judge now, and then oops later. Well, that oops damages a lot of people.
Yeah,
so,
Yeah, exactly. And if you are, somebody said something about being offended, but if you are like, I don't like offense is ridiculous. It's subject to change all the time, and those people need to. I think it's insane. I'm not offended by anything. I don't know why. I'm just not. Nothing bothers me. Like I never lie awake at night over something somebody said or a joke somebody told. And the people who do feel like that, I feel like they've got a mental illness and they need to deal with it. Like I'm not gonna, like stay inside then and,
Well, you were clearly never bullied.
No, that's not true. I was. I just, I shook it off.
Oh.
or like, but I mean, like bullied, yes, to an extent, but like, I feel like, you work on yourself. There's people that just aren't working on themselves is what it seems like.
But
and that's what it seems like. Twitter is full of people who aren't working on themselves.
Well, but comedians also, it's funny because they're doing something that you can be pummeled up there naked with people harassing and heckling and hating you, or they're liking you and loving you.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they're very sensitive people.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting dynamic in that having that career, because a lot of them do stay up all night thinking, oh, well, if I didn't say that line, maybe maybe that guy in front would have laughed. Damn it.
Yeah, we're always looking at the one person who's got their arms crossed in the front row who's just not having a good time. With like 300 people in the room, one guy miserable. And then, you realize his face is just like that, but he's having a blast. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know.
He's blind, he's deaf.
Yeah.
He was dragged in.
And there's also an assumption about comics that like, because we're making fun of something, we care less about it. But the truth is, and if you ever listen to, if people ever take the time to listen to comics, especially when they're talking much like we're doing now, like that's how they cope. A lot of people cope with humor. A lot of people cope with their demons, their fears, their mental illness, whatever it is, by making light of it. And it's weird to me that there's a whole subset of that goes, you're offending me. I don't deal with things that way, and you're not allowed to deal with it that way. Like, it's so weird because they're very much like protective of their own safe space, but that's a comic safe space is going, I'm dealing with death this way. I'm dealing with my illness this way. I'm dealing with my fear this way. And it's all through jokes.
Right.
So it's weird to see a group of people going, that's not how you should deal with it. Right. Because it upsets me.
Well, that's the audience members who are super sensitive and staying up at night and saying, why did he say that? So it's no win.
Right. No, and it's not. That's why people just got to keep doing what they're doing. Like you said, they're kind of coming out of it now, I think. Did you see the Comedy Store documentary? I
haven't.
Oh, it's really good. It's like 5 episodes. We should just live stream that. That'd be fantastic. Barry, stay a while. Strap in. It's 5 hours. It's really fucking good. But by the end of it, they all kind of talk about, that kind of culture and how that's kind of being pushed back on finally. And people are kind of getting a hold of, how to handle it, how to ride that wave out. So there's that. Thanks for asking that question, guy. I don't know who you are. So was there ever a point in time where you did you take a break for a while from writing that kind of stuff or being a part of that? Or did you never feel, cause I feel like sometimes writers, comedians, stuff like that, they got to take a little break. You know what I mean? Like they're too immersed in it, but did you ever do that or did you stake with it the whole time?
No, not really. I mean, once I got started into it, I just sort of stick with it.
Yeah.
You know, now I mean, I write for other things too.
Right.
I can even be serious.
Oh, very nice.
But for the most part, it's the humor. You know, I write these essays that I really have a lot of fun with. It's sort of, and I have this one-man show, My Life in 5 Essays by Barry Dougherty, that it
Nice.
sort of traverses my life of things that have happened and whatnot. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a different approach because I'm usually writing either I was writing for other people or about other people, and so this was a fun way that I can. Well, it's ego, so I can write about myself. I'm just gonna say it.
Did you? But you never thought about performing?
It's funny. I had, and as a matter of fact, when I started How to Do It Standing Up, and my plan was I'm going to talk to all of these comedians and talk about their experiences, get their first time and their worst time, you know, and what makes them tick and what they were all about. By the time I got through these interviews where all their first time was basically I had to get high, I had to get drunk, I vomited right before I got on there and froze, you know, I thought, I'm not doing this. So kind of mixed it. But I do like I perform my essays. I've been in groups where I would, you know, read them and, you know, in front of an audience. So I like presenting that way. I'm comfortable. But it was just the, you know, the standing naked with your own thoughts and jokes and talking to the audience. I don't know. I wasn't ready for it.
No, I understand. Especially with I didn't think about that. After talking to that many comedians and hearing their first starts fail so many times, you're like, I'm good.
Now, most of their stories were, you know, tragic and that was what was so funny. Like their worst moments were the funniest moments. And, you know, so now I'm thinking you have to really, well, you know this, you have to be so tough and so strong to be a comedian. It's just incredible how smart they are. And you notice I'm saying they and not you. How smart
no, I got it. I right over.
But they're a rare breed.
I'm like, who surprised you the most, Barry? Tell me, Behind the Bits podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way, hosted by Scott Curtis. He's on our channel. He wants to know who surprised you the most. Yeah. Can I tell you my guess is Rodney without the robe on. That was my guess.
Wait, who? What?
I said my guess for who you were the most surprised by was Rodney without his robe.
Oh, without his
Not even a ball slip.
Well, Milton Berle has, if anyone knows Milton Berle, he's known for having the biggest schlong.
Yep.
So, you know, when he would get into a contest and somebody say, let's see, you know, who's bigger, he'd say, well, how much do you want me to take out or something?
That's hilarious. Yeah, that was probably I like that he's known for two things, mostly for stealing jokes and then also for just having the biggest dick. like it's sad that that's the two things I know about Milton.
Wait, so what was that question?
The question was, who were you the most surprised by meeting?
Well, I don't know I was surprised this way. So Uma Thurman was on the Quentin Tarantino roast. And she really didn't want to do it. But she was on board with it and she was game for it because she's very cool.
Yeah.
And so I had written all of this stuff and it was sort of a theme about her having a foot fetish. Or actually Quentin having a foot fetish.
Yes, he's got the foot fetish. I was like,
about her. And so I sort of brought this up to her and she's like, no, I don't think I want to do that. Okay. So then she kept putting me off from actually sitting down and meeting and what do we do? Okay. We finally got something and she gets up there and she goes into the foot fetish and she took her shoe off, her Louboutin shoes, both of them, and poured champagne into them. And she and Quentin
That's fantastic.
drank out of them. It made like the the cover of some newspapers and whatnot. And I'm thinking, well, I thought we weren't going there. So
yeah,
it's funny how they, if you're not a comedian, and a lot of these people I work with, they aren't. They're actors and whatnot. So it's not something they necessarily are comfortable with in the roast format and doing things like that and saying things they're not usually saying. So I think that was a big turnaround for me.
Were you around? So what years were you at the Friars then? So were you there like during Richard Pryor's roast?
I had started just after.
Just after, okay. Because that's one of the ones that I heard a shit ton of stories that it was like fucking wild.
Yeah. My first roast was Billy Crystal's.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So that was your first one then?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, that picture though wasn't from his roast. That's when they named the bar in the Friars after him.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Even though he doesn't drink, they named it anyway.
That's almost cruel in a way.
It's very Friarly.
Do you remember any jokes that you loved that people refused to fucking do?
No, that's pretty much it until she did it. No, there's nobody refused to do any jokes.
Oh, that's good.
Steven Seagal was roasted.
Oh, Jesus.
And even Milton Berle was like, I think he had a gun on him. I mean, he just sat there. He was not happy with
that's hilarious
going on. So,
do you like the current roasts that are on now, or do you feel like you kind of steer away from that sort of thing?
I don't dislike them. I like the comedians. I think what initially what threw me was there were people who didn't really know how to do a roast.
Right.
So a lot of them would get up and do their act, and then they just sort of throw in the name. But then they got it fine-tuned. Like, Jeffrey Ross helped to kind of school them in how you're supposed to do this.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah. So that kind of got straightened out. And so, no, they're fine. I mean, they're not always funny.
Right.
That's any roast. You can watch some of the old Friar roasts, and there's a lot of a lot of quiet rooms.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's less about honoring the person. It seems like the Friars and some of the older ones would be people that you're being roasted by your friends, people that knew you, and was kind of. It doesn't seem like that as much on the Comedy Central ones.
Right. So that's definitely true, and that is a big difference, and that was a problem I had too, because they were pretty much initially even choosing sort of their Comedy Central comedians, which, in fairness, why wouldn't they?
Right.
But they also don't know anything about these people that they're roasting, and that's why it became difficult for them to even bother trying to kind of make it personal.
Right. Yeah, I think the last one that they did that was almost somewhat reminiscent of the older ones was when they roasted James Franco, and it was literally all of his buddies, except for like Natasha Leggero and maybe one other person, I think, who they didn't really know that well.
Right. And that's right. And that made it more fun, because when the guest of honor is sitting there and they have, well, if a total stranger is roasting them, they're just going to ride with and think, okay, whatever.
Right.
But when their friends are up there, they have no idea how far they're going to go, if that line's going to be crossed, and they know things that they don't want told. So, and if you add alcohol into the mix, because they do, a lot of them, they're drinking on the, at the event.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Are there comics that you wish you got? Oh, somebody had asked how about the Dean Martin roasts? Are you a fan of those?
I am. They were based on the Friars roasts. The producer who started that with Dean was a friar, and so it was sort of a natural progression, and it was a brilliant idea. But again, you watch them; some of them are dated, and a little hokey.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, no, they're just a lot of fun, and you get to see a lot of those old timers in their prime.
Yeah. Is there any truth to the? There's a rumor about, I don't know. I think maybe Scott had told me this about a piss bucket going around. Like the roasts were so long that they would like actually just pass around this bucket.
So, all right. Well, here's this. It's the main story is really about Johnny Carson. So,
okay.
So he was being roasted, and
Mm-hmm.
now they sort of, especially when it's televised, they'll stop. Take a break or whatever, and
Right.
People can go pee. But back in its heyday, you sat there for 3 hours pretty much while all these guys, because they could get up and leave, but as the guest of honor, you were sitting there.
Right.
So apparently Johnny felt the call. So, and I cover this in, I wrote a book called the Friars Club Book of Roasts, which is sort of a history of all these different silly things that went on. Mm-hmm. So I interviewed all these people because I had heard about this. What happened? Johnny had to pee on the dais. So I talked to Buddy Hackett, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I gave him the bucket. What?" So, and then I talked to Norm Crosby. Oh yeah. So we had champagne buckets. I was like, okay, well at least I know where the bucket came from.
Right.
So now Norm Crosby's giving him the bucket, and then
right.
I talked to Red Buttons. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was bad. He leaned into me and said, I got to pee, so I gave him the bucket. Good Lord!
Holy shit! That's hilarious.
And then I talked to Ed McMahon,
mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was in the audience. I could see he had to pee." Like, what?
I love how Ed's story is inconveniencing himself. Yeah,
by Johnny. So
that's hilarious.
I'm thinking urban myth at this point, but
I had heard a story where Ed McMahon actually was the bucket. Is that true? No. I heard that Johnny just pissed on Ed, and then
that was just weeknights after the show. A little different.
Back when he was drinking, right? That's hilarious. Yeah, I'd heard that rumor, and I was like, I don't know if it's true or not. That's cool that you got to talk with Buddy Hackett too. I remember. Don't drink the buckets.
Don't drink the buckets.
That's fucking hilarious. Oh, are there any other stories like that, like rumors and shit like that going on about the Friars roast? Because there must have been some debauchery going on back in those days.
Yeah, there definitely was, and none of it necessarily rumors, but
well, now there's a rumor about how many buckets there actually were, and what was wrong with Johnny's bladder, which I'm going to start.
They may all be telling the truth. He may have had to piss that many times. We don't know. He required 6 buckets.
Mike. It's almost like they had heard this rumor themselves, and they wanted to be a part of it. So my favorite is that Ed in the audience still got to be a part of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh, Johnny, you got to pee.
Oh my God.
From Malibu, and I ran up to.
You know what would have been really funny is if Ed ran all the way up with a bucket, and Johnny was like, "Get the fuck away from me."
Buddy already gave me a bucket.
Yeah, exactly. I got Buddy's bucket. It's fine. That's fucking
Johnny,
hilarious.
It's funny. I wanted to interview Johnny for the book,
Mm-hmm.
and so I could ask him personally. But what ended up happening? So I had never met him. He'd been in California. He never came to the club or anything.
Mm.
But my phone at the office rings one day, and I pick it up, and it's this woman saying, "Please hold for Johnny Carson." I'm like, "Wait, no, you don't. You don't just do that. Why? What?" And then so Johnny goes, "Hi, Barry. It's Johnny Carson." I'm like, "Oh." He goes, "So I got your I heard that you want to interview me for the book." I'm like, "Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, I don't want to do your book, and I'm going to tell you one." I'm like, "Okay." And he went on this sort of tirade about the roasts and what they had become. He didn't like that they were televised.
Wow.
He didn't like that women were roasting.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Ray.
So he wasn't that happy with the roasts and whatnot. So, and I said,
wow.
So this is all fine. So let's talk about that. I mean, I'm here to just write the story of the roast, and if that's your story and how you feel,
right,
bring it on. But he's like, no, I don't want any part of it. So that's why I did not get to ask him.
He didn't want his image of being a womanizer and 5-time divorce to get out, to ruin that image.
Well, it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
He'd been roasted by all those women in real life. Anyway.
Yeah. That whole Joan Rivers thing must have driven him crazy too.
Yeah.
Did you ever interview Joan?
I didn't. Well, I did. I interviewed her for a magazine profile, but not for the book. But
yeah, because I was going to say there's some people missing that I thought you would have. Like my next question was going to be: is there anybody that you wanted to get and couldn't get? Because I noticed there's a few people missing from a couple of your books, but I wasn't sure if it was personal choice or Carson being one of them.
A lot of it that some just decided they didn't want to do it or whatnot. So for whatever reason, bastards.
Yeah, motherfucker. That drive me crazy.
But Joan was great, but she was started. It wasn't long after Edgar died.
Oh,
so she got a little serious talking about that, and I thought, oh, okay, wow. It was a nice conversation, but it was tough, and it was sad. But then she launched into why at that time she didn't want to be roasted. She said, because it's only going to be about her face and her looks. And she felt that, and rightfully so, I think at the time, that's how she felt that when they roasted women, that's all they had to sort of go on.
Right. Well, when they did wind up roasting her, I mean, it was just about how she looked, and I mean, Geraldo, a brilliant roaster and brilliant comic, but yeah, he had some of the best lines that night and like laced into her.
Yeah,
like when he said, "How much worse because your real face have looked," like that was fucking like that was hilarious. But she seemed to take it in stride.
Well, I owing from what she had been thinking all along, she just expected it, so nothing surprised her. When they roasted Lucille Ball back in, like 1961, and Johnny Carson was the roast master, and he got up and he said, and it was, at those times it was stag, so there was men only in the room, and he said, so guys, just listen up and be cool because we have a lady here today, so treat her with some respect. And then he introduced her as Lucille Testicle. At the end, her little speech was, if I didn't have this last name, you guys would have had nothing to joke about. So that's pretty much how they felt about women then, and how to roast them.
Didn't they have Moms Mabley on? Was that not? I thought she was there on a couple of them.
Not the Friars, but she was at the Dean Martin roasts.
Oh, that's I kind of always mix those two up. I guess she wasn't at the drinks, jokes, and stuff. Wait, what did they say?
It looked like emojis.
Oh, it was emoji. Oh, nice. There's a couple people that I think were like Robin. Were you there for any when he was there for any of the roasts? Robin Williams when he was around?
Yeah, he was at. I was at Whoopi's roast when Ted Danson came out in blackface.
No way.
Yeah. So
no one said that wasn't a good idea at the time.
You think?
Did anybody clear that?
They didn't. That was the fun part, I guess.
Yeah.
In fairness, he and Whoopi worked on it together. They were dating at the time, and I don't know. I don't think they were very fair to Whoopi. They didn't really defend her. I don't think. I think that was horseshit. Right, and she took a lot, a lot for it. And he certainly took a lot for it. He still does. It comes up on my feed. There's always some, Ted Danson and blackface thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But she was even explaining. She said, a lot went on at that roast. I mean, you had RuPaul dressed as a nun humping the podium screaming, give it to me, baby, or what.
Right.
So, that was tough. But Robin was at that as and I think he was at Billy Crystal's also.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So are you missing it now? Like, because I can't imagine, like, what are you working on now? Like that you're like COVID's hit. I can't imagine you're going out too much, but you must still be able to write. Like, are you missing that being in that environment though?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, it was just, and it wasn't just these events. I mean, it was because it's a clubhouse.
Yeah.
So it was this great old mansion in Midtown, and they would come for lunch and drinks and dinner, and they would just sort of hang out. So yeah. So I totally miss that. But everyone's missing it now anyway, so I don't feel that bad.
Yeah. Well, there's another rumor I heard going around that it was actually Shecky that started COVID. So can you confirm or deny? No. He's still alive, right? I don't know. He's still around, isn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah, but he's still at the club. I don't know. I realized that as I said it, where I was like, "Is he dead?" No, I don't think he's dead.
Well, he's in LA.
Oh, he's in LA.
Yeah.
Well, then they're not practicing out there anyway. So.
Barry, like social clubs around the country, a lot of them are not surviving. It's a generational thing. Is there a future for the Friars Club? Is there still going to be friars, new friars, young comics that become friars?
Well, the thing with the Friars is they managed over the years to sort of continue on. And like a lot of social clubs just died because there was nobody else came up.
Right.
But with the Friars, they always had, you have to go way back, but way back, but every so often they think, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're nothing but old people. Like, that was George M. Cohen and Irving Berlin saying, what are we going to do? And then George Burns comes along as a young kid, and now, he's getting old. What are we going to do? And now Alan King. So there's always been somebody.
Right.
But now it's a little tougher, I would think. Just, people don't, you guys, really, you're going to hang out in a social club? And I don't know.
Yeah, Richie Byrne is the young friar, actually. That's the
Richie Byrne's one of our other comics, Mark Rigodano, just said, is there a rumor that Richie Byrne got banned for showing one ball at the Friars Club?
It wasn't for showing one ball. It's because he didn't show both.
He'll be happy to know he can amend that. I think he only has one ball. Is that true?
Then,
I'm going to start that rumor.
Problem.
Yeah, we're just starting all the rumors tonight. I like that. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't know. I would not hang out. I mean, there's still some people there that would be pretty cool to fucking see and hang out with. I wouldn't want to go on an off night, which I'm sure that happens a lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can, that's like any place, any restaurant, even, whatever bar, they have their nights and.
Right. Did you worked with Jerry Lewis too, right?
Yeah, I did.
What mood was he? Because I've heard stories where there's like 3 different Jerrys on any given day. Were you around for all 3? Did you get the pleasant Jerry?
I met each and every one.
Because I heard he could be very, very generous. I have a friend who's close friends with him, and he showed all 3, he would get a free. Mark said if Richie showed all 3, he would get a free year. Yeah, there's like I don't know, like I've heard he could be very, very generous, and then also like snap.
Yeah, I mean, he was I would say a star of his time. I guess I always got along with him. Cool. I happen to like him. Again, another birthday, because I seem to celebrate birthdays over there. But and this goes under what we talked about earlier about people that you grew up with or you wanted to know. Even though I've been working with him, so I was on the phone with him for something one day, and it happened to be my birthday. Mm-hmm. And I never do this, but I had to say, Mr. Lewis, I have to tell you, today's my birthday, and it's kind of cool that I'm talking to Jerry Lewis on my birthday.
Yeah. And
he just broke into happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Barry. It's a shame you're not a Jew. Okay.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, how can I have a problem with that man?
Right. No, I know. It seemed like, from what I've heard, he just doesn't seem like he suffers fools very easily. So if he liked you and you were around and hanging around him, you were close to him, and that was that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you can read accounts and see whatever else he may have said to other people and whatnot, but
sure,
I can't base people on my personal experiences with them.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I think that's how you should. So what is your, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long either, but like, I just want to get a kind of, what is your general opinion of, like, do you think comedy is going to survive COVID? Do you think we're going to come back stronger? Do you think we're going to stumble a little bit? Because I feel like comedy over the years survived a lot, but what's your...
It's going to survive. There's no, I mean, it's been around since caveman, let's face it. Battering people with bones, that's funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But, oh yeah. And even with COVID, I mean, you've turned into these Zoom events that people are doing, standing in the back of a pickup truck in front of, people socially distant. I mean, people are working it. And, you look at Sarah Cooper and Maria Dakotas, finding a way to make comedy and putting it out on social media. Yeah. They're working. And they're getting known. They're getting their names and faces out there. So I think it's just, comedians are resilient. People need that. They need the release. Definitely need the release, and they're going to need it once we can get back to normal. So yeah, no, it's here to stay. Don't you worry.
Thank you. That's a very optimistic. I like that. I like that we're kind of ending on an optimistic note, because this is a dystopia that we're kind of in. Somebody said, I think art is going. It went away too fast. I think art is going to have a rebirth. I think it is too. I think everybody's going to be clamoring for entertainment and real comedy and stand-ups and shit again. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, totally. I'm on board with it.
Great. And now, after this, we are going to be friends. Like, I know I have your number. We've been talking a little bit, but now I'm going to actually come and see you, because this is, I feel like this is a good, right?
No, I get a say in this, right?
Do you really though? I feel like I've been tapping this whole thing. Like, I have a trace on where you live now. I got a fucking, drone coming out. It's going to be great.
All right, then. Bring it on.
All right, cool. Well, then I will see you.
No.
Skunjil said he doesn't think you're going to remember me. I'm going to have to shave and cut my hair by that point. I'll still have the book, though. I'll just show up with it signed.
You'll always be a dude to me.
I appreciate that. That's very cool of you. It's a very, what's his name? Jeff, oh my God.
Jeff Norris.
No, not Norris, you fool.
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges. Yeah, man. I take that into he's the dude. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you giving up an hour and something of your time.
It was painful, but I got through it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, please. I can't wait till you actually do write about something and all you say is, John Poveromo, it was painful. And then just leave it at that.
Well, there's an essay in everything that happens in my life. Keep that in mind.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Now I'm a little scared. All right, cool. John I am holding people hostage. No one's allowed to leave this environment.
Well, wait, I feel like I'm in an escape room and there's no way out. And I'm waiting for the kid on the other side of the door to put down his porn and let me out.
Well, it is a pandemic, so you'll be waiting a long time for anybody to put that shit away. There's Chatterbait now, man. That shit goes on forever. Every hour, there's somebody new on. Oh, God. Well, listen, thanks again so much for coming on. I suck at ending these things, apparently. We've learned. So I'll be quick editing that. Oh, look at him. That's it. It's just me now. That's fucking terrible.
Dystopia tonight.
Thank you.